My name is Camara C. I am from the island of Nevis. I currently reside in St. Kitts, so I refer to myself as a Kitty Nevisian. At age 30, I was diagnosed with early stage breast cancer, and I consider it a success story based on what I've been through and how I am doing today. In December 2017, I broke my right ankle, and I was at home recovering from my broken ankle on sick leave. And in February 2018, I felt something in my breast, my left breast. It wasn't painful. I was laying down and I felt a discomfort. And I was like, what is this? And I started to examine myself, and I felt something hard there. And I was scared to touch more because I wasn't sure what it was. And I started to examine myself. And the day I remember, late February or the beginning of March, I came to St. Kitts. I was in Nevis when I found the lump, because that's where my family lives, and I was getting assistance with my foot as I couldn't walk. So I came to St. Kitts to remove my cast, and on that day I decided I was going to see the doctor about what I felt in my breast. And so it was a very painful day for me, removing my cast, and to go to the doctor to examine my breast, I had to climb some steps. And I remember my significant other and somebody else holding to help me up the steps, and I'm hopping, but I wanted to get my breast checked. And that was my first visit. The doctor examined me, and at that time, the doctor didn't give me anything to worry about. She said, it is fibrocystic and it will go away in 6 months, or it will probably go away in 6 months, and asked me to come again in 6 months. Now I was like, are you sure? But I felt at ease when I was told that. I went home and I kept on examining myself because it's not something that I had ever felt before. And so I was like, what is this? What could this be? Sometimes, depending on the position in which I was laying, I would have to shift because I just felt the discomfort. I wasn't okay with it. So a few weeks after, I visited a doctor in Nevis for a second opinion. And that doctor, an OB/GYN, she said to me, I don't usually use the ultrasound on the breast, just the belly, but I'll use it on you. And she did the examination with the ultrasound, and then she recommended that I come to see Dr. Hodge in St. Kitts to perform an ultrasound. And I came, and from there, Dr. Hodge recommended that I have a biopsy. And at that time, honestly, nobody gave me any reason to feel worried or scared. And perhaps that is the medical practitioner's way of dealing with it. I don't know. So that, I didn't go into depression. But nobody gave me any reason to feel scared or worried, or that it was even cancer. And I remember on March 15th, 2018, I had the biopsy. And I'm not somebody who's good with dates. I miss some of my friends' birthdays. I miss important things because I'm just not good with dates. So I have to put them in my calendar. But that's a date I'll never forget. On March 21st, which was a week or a weekend change later, I got the results. Well, I came to St. Kitts to visit the doctor to get the results from the biopsy. And that was the day from since when I broke my ankle in December That was the only day, March 21st, that I went to the doctor by myself. So before that, it would have been my aunt or my mom or my significant other to accompany me to my doctor's visits because I couldn't really walk. And I had my cast off, I was wearing my walking boot, and I was really fed up of everybody having to take a day off to accompany me to the doctor. And when it was my turn, I went in and the doctor said, well, Miss Lee, you know, we did the biopsy and these are the things we check when we do a biopsy. And in my mind, well, why is he telling me all of this? Get to the point. And he said that it came back malignant. It was cancerous. And I will tell you that so many things flashed through my mind. I was like, what? Malignant? Cancer? How could this be? I know nothing about cancer. How could I be diagnosed with cancer? Nobody in my family ever had cancer or breast cancer. How could this be? I don't know where to start. How will I deal with this? But most of all, I felt like I'm still young. I'm only 30. You know, I haven't lived my best life as yet. How could this be? And so my whole life flashed in front of me. And I must say, I felt really down on that day. But I'll tell you something. I cried some tears in there. But that day, the doctor's office was so packed. It's like everybody and the grandmother went to the doctor on that day. So I decided that, you know, I had my moment inside and I said, nobody out there going to see me walking out of here crying today. And so I topped it up and I had to go back to Nevis on the boat as well. So I really tried my best to push through. But I remember when I was on the ferry going back to Nevis, I felt myself slowly falling apart and I tried my hardest to keep myself together. Well, I got to Nevis late the afternoon, so it was in the night that I started to cry. I really felt lost, but I didn't know anything about breast cancer. Even though the doctor spoke to me about the options, I really didn't take in anything at that time. I mean, you gave me bad news. I'm not hearing anything after that, you know? So the one thing that stood out to me that night when I was just crying, was this one person I knew who had a similar experience, and she tried so hard. She passed earlier this year, Lee Paris, Cambridge. She tried so hard to change the face of cancer in the Federation. And so Lee came to mind, and right away, I looked her up on Facebook and I sent her a personal message. I said, hi Lee, I need to talk to you ASAP. I've just received some very devastating news and so on. And you know, she responded in a very timely manner. And so I felt at that point, she was very encouraging. So I felt at that time that all hope is not lost. Because she has been through it, or she went through it, may her soul rest in peace, and she really encouraged me. In addition to that, you know, my family was very supportive. It was very difficult for me deciding how to go about telling my family that news. I did it one by one. So I just showed up at their homes different days and, you know, just spoke to them. Those who I really wanted to know, the very close ones, I spoke to them one-on-one and had something to tell you, and I told them because, you know, they're my very close family, and if there is something going on with me, I would want them to know, and they would want to know because they would support me through it, and they did. After that, the doctor had recommended that I do some scans and some further blood work and so on. And so I started scheduling all of that. Even though that it was devastating news, one thing that the doctor said to me that made me feel a little good or gave me some hope was that it seems to be in a very early stage and we can beat this. Now, I did not remember that the afternoon when I left his office to go to the ferry and go home, and in the night when I was crying my eyes out. But as I reflected the following day on what the doctor said to me, that stood out. And Lee also said it to me. In my mind, not knowing anything, when the doctor told me that I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I felt as though this thing is going through my body quickly and I need to get it out. So I had no knowledge about how quickly it can spread, but I felt scared. I was very worried. I didn't want it to spread throughout my entire body quickly, and the outcome was different. And so I decided to be proactive. So while they sent off my results for a second opinion or second testing, I also started making plans to go overseas. One of the things, the doctor did discuss the options with me for surgery and treatment. One of the things he said was surgery and then chemotherapy. But in discussing the options, he gave me 3 options, and I chose the very radical approach. I chose to remove both of my breasts or have a bilateral mastectomy. Now, I went overseas to have surgery and for treatment, and this is why. At that time, I couldn't picture or imagine my young 30-year-old self breastless, and I wanted to have reconstruction. But the reason why I decided to go the radical way and remove both was because fear of reoccurrence. Now, I also did my research, and here I was in 2018, 30-year-old, fighting with breast cancer in my left breast. Now, I knew little at that time, but I started doing my research, and there's good and there's bad research, and I also engaged my medical team. But one of the things that I didn't want, or I do not want, was to have to go through that again. And so I decided that I was going to remove both because I don't want to find myself back in this position a few years down the road. It was a very devastating and life-changing experience. And I didn't want, and I do not want to be sitting in any office, in any doctor's office when they tell me, oh, you are diagnosed with breast cancer so I chose to remove both and do reconstruction. If I can be honest, I have accepted my journey. I am comfortable with myself. I am okay. I am happy with my story. And if I had to do it all over again, and I hope that I don't, I would be okay breastless. That's just how I feel. But 2 years ago, I couldn't picture myself without any boobs. It was something very difficult for me to accept. I would say I think it was 3 weeks after I received the diagnosis, and I left the Federation and traveled to the US. Before I left, I started reaching out to the doctors there, and I had my family working on it for me as well, so I had already set up the appointments from here. And so when I got there, I was assessed. I had to do the blood work and so on, for them to do their own assessment. But I also took with me my medical results from here. And I think it was the end of April. Yes, I left the Federation early April, and the end of April I had surgery. bilateral mastectomy and immediate reconstruction. I spent a very short time in the hospital, and I was sent home to rest for some time. And if I can tell you, I expected to be in more pain than I was. So the medication that they gave me was really good and helped with controlling the pain. Never mind, I was walking like an old lady for some time, but the pain wasn't extremely overbearing. And for me to say that, because I am somebody who can't even take a little pinch, for me to say that, you must know. But one of the things that happens when you have surgery on your breast is that they also insert drains at your side to drain the fluid, and to help with the healing process as well. And so I had 2 drains hanging from each side, and they were kind of uncomfortable because I had to walk like this, and we had to drain them. I think it was twice a day. There was a time we had to monitor them, and we had to drain the drains, the fluid from the drains. My oncologist there recommended 8 rounds of chemotherapy. I should have started chemotherapy the end of May, so like a month after surgery, 2018. But in trying to administer the first round of chemotherapy, they realized that my veins, I have very weak veins, so they couldn't find my veins. And I think, if I can remember, they have a policy that you're not supposed to try more than twice. And if you do, I think it's twice. And if you do, you have to let someone else try. So in total, they tried 3 times, and it wasn't successful. Now, I am afraid of needles. So imagine me closing my eyes and they're digging me up, trying to find the vein. So that was not a very good experience for me. So at that time, they decided that I needed to get a port. And I have a scar somewhere here. I think I'm touching it right here. And so the port is a very small device that they use to administer chemotherapy, so they don't have to go through your veins. And most times, in the US, they seem to use it on most patients. But in persons who have really weak veins, it comes in really handy, such as in my case. But you know what? I was also very afraid for them to access the port as well, because they had to prick me each time to access the port, and then they had to clean it, and they flushed it with saline before and after administering the chemo. And I'm afraid of needles. I can't say that enough. So I used to tell the chemo nurses, tell me when you're ready. And then sometimes I would say, don't tell me, just do your thing. And I would try to look away, but I was like, oosh. But it was a quick pinch. And each session was about maybe 2 hours. And for most of my sessions, I had a relative or one of my close family members accompanied me until I was nearing the end. And I told them I'm okay. I'll take an Uber. I'm okay, because each time somebody had to accompany me to the doctor or a chemo session, they had to take the day off from work. Or they ended up going to work late or take a few hours off, and I wasn't okay with that. I really appreciate them being supportive and being there for me, because God knows I was scared. But I also didn't want them to have to miss work too many times. I was prescribed 8 rounds of chemotherapy, and I only did 6. My oncologist stopped me after the 6th one because I developed an allergic reaction. An allergic reaction where I was at home, my skin was itching. Even if I was at the supermarket, the palm of my hands, my entire body, the sole of my feet, it was just all itching uncontrollably. And it was so bad that I was crying. I couldn't control the tears. And so I had to call my oncologist. I went in ASAP. And after examining me, she decided that, they're going to take me off of chemo and not to worry because I was near the end, and based on the research, and the cancer was stage 1, which was pretty early, so it was okay.
Y'all sound so good tonight. Come on, everybody say.
In my speaking, you would realize I said when I got the diagnosis, because when all of this happened, I used to say my diagnosis. And then a very wise mentor I have in St. Lucia, who has been through the same journey. I made a post on Facebook one day and she corrected me. Actually, it was on my birthday, 2018, when I shared my story via Facebook. I shared my story because from March to August, I was just so thankful that I have lived to see another birthday. But she messaged me privately and she said, don't own it. Don't own the diagnosis. And she explained why. And so she encouraged me to change my terminology. So instead of saying my diagnosis, I refer to it as the diagnosis. And it all made sense. And that has been my approach up to today. And even when I speak with others who are going through the same thing, I speak to them about it as well. But before I completed my last chemo, and my last chemo was in August, the 5th chemo, sometime after that, I was hospitalized. And one of the things that my oncologist advised was to monitor my temperature. And if it went above 100, I was required to contact my doctor or call the emergency room. And so one night I was burning up. And my mom was there with me and I said, Mommy, I'm burning up, I'm hot. And she's like, yeah, you're really hot. And she checked my temperature. And we realized it was like 101. And now I was scared because I'm wondering what's going on, I called the doctor and my doctor's office, and there was an on-duty doctor. So they always have on-duty doctors in the evening for the chemo center. And so I called and I told him what it was, and he advised me to take 2 Panadol. And so I did, and he told me to monitor it, and the following day, if it's still high, I should come in. Now the following day it fluctuated, and in the night it went up again high. And so this time we all got scared. And I'm like, can you take me to the emergency room, please? And so we all got dressed and my aunt took me to the emergency room. And when I got there, it was all hands on deck. The urgency in which they dealt with me, especially knowing my medical history. I'm currently on chemotherapy and so on. And so they just dealt with me right away. But what was impressive was that from the waiting room, they asked me to go into a small cubicle. And then in that one cubicle, I saw them bringing so many devices to scan so many things. They even was it an x-ray? I think they even did an x-ray of my chest right there. Like so many different machines. And I was like, what? Like, how is that possible? Because I'd never seen that before. And they did so much blood work there. And so right away, they started trying to find the cause, you know, and I was pleased. The reconstruction, there are two things that I will speak about there. So with my reconstruction, I chose to do it in 2 stages. And so what we did first was I did, instead of putting in the actual implants, we put in expanders, which helped me to heal and also stretch the skin. So a year later, I went back in 2019 and I actually did the full procedure, which was to put in the implants. During that time, when I had the expanders, it was extremely uncomfortable because they were hard. So I would try and lay on this side. I was like, I'm not comfortable. You know, I kept turning. I had to prop my back up all the time. I couldn't lay flat. So it was extremely uncomfortable. And if I can tell you, after the procedure, my boobs were ugly. The marks, the cuts, you know, they were very unattractive. After the first procedure, the expanders, and a part of me felt worried. But you know, my partner was and still is very supportive and very comforting. So if I would complain about something and say it looked ugly, even if I complain about myself being fat, you know, he would tell me something positive. And so I really appreciated that. And I wouldn't say that he was lying to me, because he wasn't lying to me. You know, sometimes that we are really hard on ourselves. And note I said that my boobs were ugly to me. After year 1, and when I chose to do the actual process, something I didn't mention was when I chose to do the bilateral mastectomy, I could have chosen to keep my nipples, but I was so scared that I had to take the nipples. I didn't want to hear, oh, there was something in the nipples, and so, you know, and that is something that they also spoke to me about, nipple sparing or taking them, and I chose to remove everything. Now, when I did the actual process in 2019, when I did the implants, I wasn't going to reconstruct my nipples because it was an additional cost. That's one, and I'm like, I don't need, what do I need them for? You know, but I thought it over, and at the last minute, I decided that I was going to get the nipples reconstructed. And I will tell you, when I did that, they put 2 very hard buttons on my nipples, and my boobs were so taped up. And I felt like, oh my gosh, this is what I have to go through. But it got better, because fast forward to today, I really love my boobs. I have 2 really nice boobs. I flash my boobs to my friends. They make fun of me. Oh, and the big thing is, so before all of this, I had smaller boobs. And so I decided, if you're going to have a boob job, why not go a step up, a stage up, or a cup up? And so I did go a cup up, you know, with my reconstruction process. So yes, I fast forward to today, I have 2 really nice boobs that I am pleased and comfortable with. I also love my nipples. They look very real. My doctor did a fantastic job. And I think my boyfriend is also very pleased with my with my boobs and my nipples as well. I mean, I'm being honest. I mentioned earlier that it was on August 31st, 2018 that I shared my story publicly. I wrote an epistle on Facebook, and that's not me usually. But from that point, my birthday has taken on a different meaning to me, where I am just so happy and grateful to live to see another birthday. I can't even explain it. Even though I'm saying this, I can't explain how truly happy I am, like how I truly feel. And so it is something that, runs deep. I look forward to my birthday coming up. I'm not looking forward to anybody doing anything or celebrating me. I'm celebrating myself and my life because I know what I've been through and what I am still going through. And when I say what I am still going through a journey like that doesn't end the next day or the next year. There are things that I am still dealing and coping with, such as fatigue. Chemotherapy took away all of my energy. So apart from struggling with a foot and ankle that was recently broken, even when I was in a position to walk a little better, I couldn't walk very far because I would be out of breath. And it still happens up to today. It is a lot better. I have come a long way in 2 years, but it still happens. And there are times when I tell the persons close to me, I have to rest. I feel so tired. I could be here talking to you 1 minute, and the next minute, my body just feels extremely low. I have to rest. And these are things that I am still dealing with. But my family is so supportive and so understanding. I've always been somebody who would engage in training and development and motivational speaking. I've turned it up a notch. I am now an advocate for breast cancer. From when I put my story out there, by the following day, September 1st, and I posted my story after 11 in the night on August 31st, 2018. And by mid-morning of September 1st, 3 young ladies had messaged me about what they were going through. 3 young ladies. Now, it is something that we are often afraid to talk about and we don't know where to turn. So I think, and I am positive, that sharing my story has inspired and helped so many others, and I will continue to do it. Today, I support ladies who, they might find something, they may be a bit suspicious. I accompany women to the doctor. I offer my time, I offer my support, because I know what I've been through. And if I can tell you, as I sit here today, I can tell you, and I tell everyone, that even though I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2018, I never felt sick, nor did I ever look sick. Something felt different in my body, and I acted on it. And so I tell people, if something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't right. And I try, after my journey, I try to encourage people to be proactive with their health. Don't be paranoid and think that if you find something, it may be that. It may not be that. But just be proactive and don't sit down on something when you could have had it checked before and had the issue resolved. And so I think that throughout the journey and even now, I have had and maintained a positive mindset. Now, going through chemo, it changed me. There are times I felt extremely tired, like the first 2 to 3 days after chemo. So I didn't feel like doing anything, not moving out of bed, not doing anything. My relationship, I was in a relationship at the time, and I'm still in a relationship, the same relationship. One of the picker-uppers for me throughout my journey, or while going through my journey in 2018, was when my surgeon said to me, "Camara, we got all of the cancer." I was very happy. but say one, say two. In that moment, he also said to me, in another area of that same breast, we found signs of early cancer developing. I'll say that again. My surgeon also said to me that in another area of that same breast, we found signs of early cancer developing. And so in that moment, I felt pleased and I felt as though I made the right decision to remove both of my breasts. Because had I decided to do a lumpectomy, where I just remove a wider cross section, you never know. I could have been right back in that position a year or a few years down the road. And I felt very happy that I made the right decision. I felt happy within myself. But that was the best news for me. Camara, we got all of the cancer.
Come on, you declare it. There is power in the name.
One of the things that I say, and I would say to any individual, male or female, because men face these things as well, is first of all, if you find something abnormal, don't be scared, or don't freak out. Get checked first, because if you find a lump in your breast, it may not be cancerous. It is not always that. One of the things that I found out and that I learned for the first time in 2018 was about fibrocystic breast. I never heard about it before that, or lumpy breast, as some of us would call it. And after sharing that with a few of my female family members, a lot of them disclosed to me that they have found lumps in their breast several times. They went to the doctor and they turned out fibrocystic. But it is not something that we are comfortable talking about. So I encourage females, if you find something, be proactive with your health. It doesn't have to be a lump, it doesn't have to be related to breast cancer. Anything at all with your body that you're going through doesn't seem normal, be proactive. It doesn't help to to get it checked or get medical advice on it. When you're going through something like this, it's very important to have a positive mindset and shut out the noise. As a people, we mean well, but we don't always say things that are positive and encouraging. For example, somebody might hear that you are diagnosed with cancer or breast cancer, any type, or you tell somebody your story, and they start to tell you, girl, what you going to do? No go take no surgery, no go take no chemo. There's a chemo kill people and all of that. My advice is, it is not a one-size-fits-all. Everybody's story is different. And I have learned that through my journey, because I have heard so many things. And so sometimes it helps to keep your news to yourself and speak with your medical team until you have a good understanding or a better understanding of what's going on with you. It's very important that we be supportive and positive as a society, and also respect persons' confidentiality. It's not your news to tell.
Friends of mine pass with time. After living a life of sin, some many give up, many give in. It's my determination to win. I survived the worst of times. I survived. I was buried alive, but I'm still breathing. I don't know what tomorrow may bring, but I got a feeling. Alright, now I am alive. There must be a reason. I was given one more chance. My heart's still beating. Oh, they made a ditch for one, but there would be two in their attempt to hold my life. The wicked things they do. But Jah make I pray. my salvation. Of whom shall I fear? I was buried alive, but I'm still breathing. I don't know what tomorrow may bring, but I'm gonna feel it. Alright, now I am alive. There must be a reason. I was given one more chance. My heart's still beating. One more time. I said buried alive, but I'm still breathing. I don't know what tomorrow may bring, but I'm gonna feel it. Alright, I am alive. There must be a reason. I was given one more chance. My heart's still beating. My heart's still beating. My heart's still beating. My heart's still beating.